Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Making Money on Bitcoin. And today I will talk about 3 Bitcoin US dollar perpetual swaps we now have in crypto. I will start with discussing perpetual swaps in general, and then I will talk about some details about each of these swaps, including the funding mechanics, which are different for each of these swaps. Then I will execute some trades based on differences between the funding rates. So I'll go long Deribit, long Crypto Facilities, and short Bitmex, hoping for these trades to be profitable long term. And at the end I will discuss the liquidation, termination, deleverage, and socialized loss mechanics for each of these 3 platforms. If you like the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Please use my referral links from below if you trade Bitmex, Deribit and Crypto Facilities, and please register with my links below, which will give you 10% fee discount on Bitmex, Deribit, and 20% fee discount on Crypto Facilities. And that 20% discount on Crypto Facilities is unique. I don't think you'll find another link with 20% discount. Right, so let's discuss perpetual swaps in general. In the past, Bitmex had futures only on their exchange, and the futures were quite difficult to understand for average users. They expired, they required to be reopened, and perpetual swap has resolved all these problems. It resembles the normal spot market for Bitcoin US dollar. And it's very easy to understand, even if you don't understand the mechanics behind it. Since Bitmex introduced the perpetual swap, it has been a massive success. It has gained a lot of popularity, and now it's the biggest and most liquid product in the crypto market. It took a while for Deribit and Crypto Facilities to come up with their perpetual swaps, but now we have them and they are all different. So I'll discuss the differences here. The fees are very similar across the board. They are 0.075% taker fee for each of the products, and minus 0.025% fee, which is a rebate on Deribit and Bitmex, and minus 0.03% on Crypto Facilities, which is a rebate as well. It's worth discussing the position limits. You want to stay within the lowest position limit. If you want to open a bigger position, you can open several accounts. That will help you in the event of a liquidation. Now, even if you have plenty of margin, in a doomsday scenario, you can get liquidated. So it's best to keep within the position limits, which are 1 million contracts for Crypto Facilities, 100 Bitcoins for Deribit, and 200 Bitcoins for Bitmex. Now let's discuss the funding. So the funding in general is there to keep the price of the swap close to the index. So when the swap trades above the index, the funding is there to encourage people to short, and when swap trades below the index, it's there to encourage people to buy it and to bring the price back in the region of the index. An important mechanic is the funding basis, which is there only on the Bitmex product. There is no funding basis on Crypto Facilities and on Deribit. And the reason for basis being there is that it's more expensive to borrow US dollars than it is to borrow Bitcoin. And in the past, Bitmex was basing their basis on interest rates on Bitfinex, but since then they have overgrown Bitfinex, and it was and it is quite easy to manipulate these interest rates on Bitfinex. So they came up with their own basis calculation, and that is 0.06% daily for borrowing US dollar and 0.03% daily for borrowing Bitcoin, and that boils down to 0.03% daily basis. So what does that mean? That means that if there is no premium, if the swap trades exactly at the index price, the longs will pay shorts 0.03% daily or 0.01% every 8 hours. And this mechanic is there only on Bitmex. There is no basis on crypto facilities and on Deribit. Now I personally think that this 0.01% basis is a little bit excessive. That 11% yearly is probably a bit of an overestimation. I would think it will be far closer to 3 to maybe 5%, but no basis at all I think is also unfair, and this is what we see on crypto facilities and on Deribit. So that was the basis. On top of the basis there is the premium, and this is based on how more expensive the perpetual swap was in comparison to the index, or how lower was the price of perpetual swap compared to the index. And on Bitmex we get the clamp. So if the average price of the swap was trading less than 0.05%, then there is no extra funding added to the basis, and this is the clamp. So it's 0.05% above and below, and you can have really wild spikes, and if they average to below 0.05%, the funding remains 0.01%. Now Deribit takes a different approach. They have these continuous funding. We'll find it here actually. So they also have the clamp, but they don't have averaging over an 8-hour period. They have it continuously. So every time, every sample taken over time being within the clamp, which is exactly the same as the clamp on Bitmex, the funding will be zero. So if the price is 0.05% above the index or 0.05% below the index, the funding is zero. But then every moment that the price goes above the 0.05% clamp, there will be some funding. This means that without this averaging, you can have some of these very, very high spikes, and then the background of a really flat line, and obviously there is no basis like there is on Bitmex. Crypto facilities have taken a different approach. So they don't have the basis, they don't have the clamp, but they do have the averaging over a 4-hour period. So this is their swaps guide, and they calculate the premium, they calculate the funding for each 1-hour period, and the payment is continuous, just as it is on Deribit. So on Deribit the funding is being paid continuously, on crypto facilities the funding is being paid continuously, while on Bitmex the funding is being paid every 8 hours. So on crypto facilities they calculate the funding for each hour, and this is the funding for 1 hour, so over a 4-hour period this will give you 4 times 4, so 0.016%. Now all these need to be multiplied by 4 to get the true amount of funding paid, and this averaging prevents these wild spikes. So if there are some spikes up and down, they're averaged out, similar to what's happening on Bitmex. So long story short, if we assume that in a bull market there will be similar premium to each of these platforms, and in the bear market there will be similar discount on each of these platforms, because of the 0.01% basis, the position in the short position in Bitmex perpetual swap will earn us 11% a year. That isn't much. On $10,000 contract, it will be only $1,100 a year, so less than $100 a month. But still I would be keen to give it a go, and so in a moment I will go to each of these exchanges and I will aim to execute a 10,000 contract long on crypto facilities and Deribit, and $10,000 shorts for Bitmex. On each of these accounts I have half a Bitcoin. On the ones where I'm shorting there is 0.4997 Bitcoin. I will report on the results of these trades on my Twitter. You can find the link to my Twitter below. I might just post an update weekly, and we'll see whether this trade is making money or losing money. In order to get a decent price, I will aim to market buy on crypto facilities and Deribit, because the liquidity there is quite low and you have to trade against the market maker, and I will aim to get filled on Bitmex swap, because it's a much more liquid platform. Now the way I like to enter these trades is to have a look at what's the market maker on Bitmex doing, and in this case you can expect the price to go up. The market maker has a around 1.2 million position here, and then this 2 million position is probably a spoof, but then on the sell side there isn't a large order, so at the moment we can expect the price to go up slightly, and if I was to execute a trade, I would wait for this to turn back, for the price to go down a little bit, and the moment the market maker increased the ask side, I would then trade. So I would wait for the price to drop a little bit, then stop, and before it goes up I market buy here, and then I aim to get filled on in here. So I would probably execute now and then get filled here, and this is what I will do in a moment. Right, so let's get to it and let's open these positions. In order to get the best price, I would aim to first execute market order on crypto facilities and then get filled on Bitmex. Price is going down a bit. I'll be more keen to wait for it to go up. So the market maker here will be very reluctant to fill your limit order, This is why I will market buy it here and then limit sell it here when enough liquidity is on the buy side. At the moment it looks like the price will go down slightly. So I'm just waiting for the market maker to put the bigger order on the buy side. And then I will market buy here and place a limit sell and hope for it to be filled. And I'll do the same thing for the Deribit. Oh, come on. So I believe the market maker on Crypto Facilities closely follows the price on Bitmex. And it looks at the price, but I don't think it does look at the order book. Still market maker. There's more liquidity on the sell side. Let's just wait. And here we are, more liquidity on the buy side. I'd like to wait until there is like 1.2 million on the buy side and then less than 100 grand on the sell side. Then I will execute market buy and place a limit sell. We can see that the order book is suggestive of price going up. There's 9 million buy, less than 6 million sell. So it looks like it wants to go up. But given the funding in 3 minutes, people in general want to be short to grab that funding. Still selling. And here we are, more buyers than sells. Funding in 1 minute, will we make it? No, I think the price will go up. 10 million versus 5 million. Large liquidity here. 4 seconds, we will not get this funding. And this is a bit of a gamble. Okay, so all the orders were cancelled because they were post only. So here we have it. We managed to open the position at 7232 and here at 7240, so not too shabby. Now let's try to open it on Deribit. And that's another Bitmex account. Sorry for the screen to be blurry, but for it to be I had to reduce resolution from 4K to 1080p. Okay, so we'll want to market buy here and sell here. Now again, I like to market buy or sell on a smaller liquidity exchange like Deribit and then get filled on the bigger one. Again, we select post only not to pay the taker's fees. Plenty of liquidity on the sell side, but it's all kind of trying to sell just now. I believe it will disappear. I believe this is spoof, and it will disappear once there's more liquidity here. So although it looks like it's even, I don't think it's even. I think there is more pressure on the buy side, and if we discard this 3 million, it's overwhelmingly bullish with only 4 or maybe 5 million on the sell side and around 10 million on the buy side. So waiting, how are we doing with the funding? So here it's flat. So we will not get as good of an entry here. A little bit more. This doesn't look like a spoof now. I think it needs to be filled. If it was a spoof, it would have disappeared by now, I think. Was it a spoof? Yep, it was a spoof, got cancelled. 2 million. Okay. let's let it ride for a tiny bit, maybe here. And we have entered. Good, decent price. Entry here. 7236.5, and entry here 7238.5. So taker fee here, maker fee here, not too shabby. Right, so there you have it. This is how I like to open and close my positions. I look at the Bitmex order book, and this is the biggest order book in crypto. And when the market maker changes from being long to being short, I like to do my entry on a different exchange and then get filled on Bitmex. I always have Clark Moody Bitcoin tickers open, which help me spot some extensive buying or selling on OKEX quarterlies and on Bitfinex. These two exchanges can generate a lot of buying and selling pressure quite instantly, and if I'm waiting to get filled and I see such an action on OKEX quarterlies or on Bitfinex, I sometimes decide to execute into the market rather than waiting to get filled, which may not happen. Right, towards the end, let's talk about liquidation, termination, the leverage, and socialized loss. Let's start with Bitmex. So it's the biggest and let's say safest platform to prevent you from unexpected deleverage, or we can call it termination. Let's start with the liquidation. So each position has its liquidation price. Our position will be liquidated at $11,242, and when the mark price hits this price, we will get liquidated, and this is quite an expensive experience. It's quite safe, and it's a good practice to set a stop loss. So you can set a stop market triggered at the mark price, which will be just close to your liquidation. Now, don't have it just $1 above or below your liquidation. You need to have it a little bit lower, because it may get rejected because your position is already in liquidation. So you can set the market close here, and then just in case, so you can submit this buy stop triggered on the mark price and only close on trigger here. But then you can take profit or stop limit order, which will try to make it a limit order. So when the mark price reaches, here we have a market stop on 11238, so at 11237 we can aim to set a limit order, and you can set 9 of these and aim to get filled at a taker fee rather than maker fee. It's always a way to save you a few pennies. Probably not worth fiddling when you have $10,000 position, but with a large position, it's worth setting several stop limits and then one stop market to definitely take you out of this position before the liquidation. But we are here to talk more about the mechanics rather than practicalities. So when mark price reaches your liquidation price, your position is being taken over by the liquidation engine, and then this liquidation engine puts it into the order book as a limit order. Now it's no big deal when it's a small liquidation, but when it's a massive chain of liquidations, let's say $300 million, the liquidation will put them as $10 million limit orders in the order book, and they will hang around there. These liquidations will change the price, and they will follow the last traded price, so that they are likely to get executed. But the liquidation engine will try not to aggressively execute them into the market. It will rather keep them as limit orders and wait for them to get filled. Now sometimes this does not happen, and the liquidation engine has to move these liquidations more into the market, and it uses the insurance fund for that. So if the liquidations are not getting filled, it moves them towards the last traded price at the expense of the insurance fund. Now, insurance fund on Bitmex is absolutely massive. It's almost 12,000 bitcoins, and I believe it will never get depleted. But in an event of a massive price drop, let's say drop to $2,000 per bitcoin within minutes, then I think that there would be some that there would be massive losses and some deleverages. So let's say that there is 300 million liquidations in control of the liquidation engine, and it cannot get them filled because there is not enough buyers on the platform. Then auto deleveraging occurs, so it will deplete all the insurance fund allocated for Bitcoin US dollar pair in order to keep the price attractive and keep it likely to be. But if it doesn't get filled, auto deleveraging happens. So those who had long positions and had large amounts of profit and were on high leverage will be the first to get deleveraged. So they will be kind of stopped from their position, and they will not benefit from the further price action, and this will prevent those who are at massive loss from generating any more loss. Now, it's not discussed in details here, but the insurance fund is not there for every instrument. So I believe it is divided between the instruments, and it's biggest for the Bitcoin US dollar pair, but there are different funds for altcoin futures. And in the past, when Bitcoin Cash was being pumped, there were some massive gains and massive losses, and the insurance fund for that pair got depleted, and people were deleveraged, so they were not benefiting from the pump, because some people who were short generated so much losses that the liquidation engine couldn't aggress these liquidation limit orders enough into the market to get them filled. Also worth mentioning, there are some manipulation prevention systems on Bitmex, so it's difficult to manipulate the futures mark price, and in the event of outage of GDAX and Bitstamp, or actually now Coinbase Pro and Bitstamp, they can make their decision about what's the current mark price. Another thing worth mentioning is that Bitmex has this very sophisticated system for calculating every user's balance on every tick, and this is why the system gets overloaded when there's plenty of price action, plenty of orders getting submitted, filled, plenty of liquidations and stops. So when the system has to calculate all these new orders, it doesn't have enough capacity to accept new orders. So in order to keep all these balances checked every tick, and in order to be absolutely sure that no account balance goes below zero. This is all calculated meticulously and rather slowly, but you are guaranteed that no account will go below zero. Now let's talk about the liquidation on Deribit. Deribit is being advertised as a much faster platform in comparison with Deribit. And now this is my personal opinion. I don't have extensive knowledge about Deribit's engine, but I believe they don't have this system which checks every balance, every tick, and makes absolutely sure that there are no negative balances. And I base my belief on the fact that there can be socialized loss and clawback affecting all the users. So I believe that if they don't have that system, they can be much faster and they will not have this system overload. So how Deribit liquidates their positions? Let's talk about the futures. Let's don't get into too much details about the portfolio margin and options liquidation. So the futures are getting liquidated incrementally. So if you are just about getting wrecked, only part of your position gets liquidated, but not all of it, and you might just dodge the bullet, while on Bitmex your whole position would be liquidated in bulk. But we're here talking about massive doomsday scenario rather than normal run-of-the-mill liquidation. So Deribit has their manipulation prevention systems. At the moment, the futures are allowed to trade up to 10% from the index price, but this can be changed if needed. So if you manipulate the price to 10% below the mark price or within some other limits, it will not be allowed to trade at this point. And now let's imagine that price drops to 2K and half of the platform gets deleveraged. All these liquidations and forced sells will not find the buyer because buying is not allowed within this price distance from the current index price. So if you get 200 million sells immediately on Deribit, there will not be enough buyers within 10% distance from the mark price to buy it all up. Now this is a very unlikely scenario, but if this happens, then the insurance fund gets used, and if the platform is still at loss, then on Friday at the settlement, all the users in profit will have to contribute to the losses. Now the insurance fund is rather small, but it's growing, so at some point it may grow to the size of Bitmex insurance fund. They have introduced this insurance fund quite recently, and it gets 0.15% of that of the position on the liquidation. This is the old figure. I think it's an error. They need to correct this. So they get 0.015% on each of the liquidation. And that goes towards the insurance fund. So there you have it. On Bitmex, no matter what happens, it's really unlikely to get deleveraged. Their insurance fund is massive, while in Deribit there is a small chance that there will be a socialized loss, and if you're hedging large amounts on Deribit, you might be forced to contribute to the platform losses. Now there was an event last year when Bitcoin went up around 20% within some very short period of time, I think few hours, and at that point Deribit quarterly's futures went completely crazy. They were trading at a massive premium, and the platform was at 100 Bitcoin loss, but they had a very good relationship with their market makers, and the market makers were the ones who benefited from that situation most, and they contributed towards the loss, and users were not at loss. So it's different on crypto facilities. There is no so it's different on crypto facilities. There is no socialized loss, and there is no insurance fund on crypto facilities. So when your account balance is lower than your maintenance margin, your position gets into the liquidation, and it gets market sold if you are long into the order book. And that's essentially it, but it's not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about a doomsday scenario. So if half of crypto facilities open balance gets liquidated, there's obviously not enough liquidity in the order book to absorb this. So what happens then? Your position gets immediate or cancel liquidation order into the order book, and if they manage to liquidate you, then that's fine. But if they don't, then the next step is your position gets assigned to liquidity providers, and these are people who just leave some funds on crypto facilities, and they essentially act as liquidation engine on Bitmex. So whatever is not absorbed by the order book goes to them, and they take the risk. So they act like the insurance fund. It has worked out really well for the insurance fund on Bitmex, and it should be a profitable endeavor to be a liquidity provider on crypto facilities. But then if there are not enough liquidity providers, your position gets terminated. So every trader, every position has a counterparty on crypto facilities. So when I am 10,000 contracts long, I always have an assigned counterparty on the system. And if my position cannot be liquidated against the order book, if my position cannot be allocated to a liquidity provider, then my position gets terminated, and all my margin gets transferred to my counterparty who was $10,000 short. And it should be profitable for them because it's 50x leverage, so they take all my margin, and that is essentially how it works. Now, just to finish off, I really love all these three platforms. In comparison to Bitcoin exchanges, their support teams are absolutely excellent. And I've had really good experiences with support teams on crypto facilities, on Deribit and on Bitmex. They all respond very quickly. They are all very helpful, and I highly recommend all these three platforms. They are very good platforms. I do highly recommend them. If you want to do some arbitrage between them, I recommend Austerity, Saks, Premium Catcher. It's the one done by Swapman, and it helps you to find discrepancies between the prices of their futures. So you can see that Bitmex swap trades at $0.23 premium, crypto facilities trades at $4 premium, and Deribit trades at $0.37 premium. Otherwise, it's probably worth mentioning the leverage. So the leverage is 100x on Deribit and Bitmex and 50x on crypto facilities. And that's essentially it. Please comment, like, and subscribe if you like the video. Please use my referral links and save money on the transaction fees. Use my referral links to register your accounts with all these three platforms. Thank you very much for watching. And please follow me on Twitter. The link to my Twitter you'll find below. I will update you on how these positions long crypto facilities, long Deribit and short Bitmex are doing, whether they're making money or losing money, and where it's cheapest to go long or short.